When is the last time you listened to a podcast about web development, web design, and small business and didn't fall asleep? Yes, we cover web development, web design, and small business, but like actual human beings with personalities. If you're a beginner, we're not going to talk over your head. It's more like asking your buddy for help. We have guests, we have fun, and let me tell you, these two can get off on a tangent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HTML All the Things Podcast. This is Matt Lawrence and Mike Curran.
That's right, we are back. This is the HTML All Things Podcast, and this interview episode is titled AI Has Broken the Web Developer Job Market. We're interviewing Kent C. Dodds in this one. Kent C. Dodds is a celebrated educator, open source advocate, and React expert. He's the creator of the Epic Web Conference that starts on March 25th, 2025, and has created some of the best React workshops and courses out there. In this episode, we're diving deep into how AI has made it almost impossible to apply to jobs in a traditional way, and if junior developers should turn on their AI chatbots when learning. We also cover the framework you should be learning and the roadmap for learning it. Spoiler, it's React. So without further ado, let's cut to the call. All right, and we've got Kent on the line. Super excited about this one. I've been following you. I feel like you're one of the OG people that I probably followed early on when I first got on X, like you, James Quick, Danny, like just everyone there. You were always there. And then obviously you with being involved in Remix, I'm a huge JavaScript framework nerd. So that was a big one for me. But yeah, welcome to the show, Kent. Really appreciate your time to come on. Wanna ask what's up? What's going on? What are you working on right now?
Oh, well, yeah, thank you very much for your kind words and for having me on the show. Yeah, right now I'm working primarily on two things. The Epic Web Conference is coming up in a month from the day we record this. So March 25th is workshop day, and we have the Web Dev Challenge with Jason Lengsdorf going on that day. And there's pre-conf event stuff going on. And then the 26th is the conference. Lots of really awesome speakers. And then the 27th is ski day here in Utah. So very much looking forward to that. And then the other thing I'm working on right now is an app that sends or where you can queue up text messages to send to your loved ones to express gratitude and love. And I've actually been using that for years and years, actually over almost a decade now, for my wife. And I'm going to be using that app to teach people React Router. So my series of workshops this year is all about React Router. So that's what's going on with me.
Heck yeah. React Router, the latest version, V7?
Yeah, latest of everything. Still kind of waiting. I've been in a bit of a holding pattern with React Server Components support in React Router because I don't want to teach a whole series of workshops and then have this new feature where it's like, yeah, I want to do everything this way. Not to say that you have to use React Server Components with React Router. You definitely don't. But I'm pretty confident that you're going to want to. And so I want my material to all be using that. But I do think that for some of the beginner stuff at the start, that can definitely just be like traditional standard React Router stuff that like hasn't changed in many years. So I just started this week on the material for that.
Heck yeah. Okay. So yeah, the server component stuff, there's a lot to go down in that rabbit hole, that's for sure. So I think it's good to kind of have both perspectives, like both kind of ways the workshop being without it, and then maybe a course later or something with it. That'd be sweet. But I think we'll touch a little bit on more in-depth React stuff later on in the episode. What I want to start off with today, and I think I pretty much ask this of every guest nowadays because I think it's so top of mind. And if anyone's in the industry, I'm sure they're thinking about it every time I go to a conference or like a meetup or something like that. This is what everyone talks about. What's your thoughts right now as of 2025, February 27th, current job market with AI kind of intertwined, right? Like, how do you see developers, like what advice would you give to devs that are trying to enter it right now, maybe that you wouldn't have given a couple of years ago?
Well, yeah, there's uh, um, definitely things have changed in the way that we develop software. Um, but the fundamentals have not. I just posted this, I think, yesterday, and it's basically I said, I don't care how good AI is, the version of you that works hard and puts in the effort will be more successful and happier than the version of you who doesn't. So AI is awesome, but it's not something that like you're going to be able to say, oh, well, I may as well not try anymore because AI is just going to do a better job. I see AI as a tool that we can use to do better things, do more things, do things faster. It also makes us do bad things faster. Like we can build bad code better. We're better at building bad code, I guess. And so developing a skill of using that tool is the same as developing the skill to use a framework. It's just something that you uh, develop over time. And I think that I'm much more capable at using these tools because of the experience that I have now. And developers who are like growing up with these tools already available should absolutely learn to use them, and also need to find a way to develop the intuition anyway. Like there's just a lot of intuition that comes with years of experience in the industry. And actually, when I was early on in the industry, I one of the things I loved was how quickly I could become um, experienced or more experienced in a thing than somebody who's been in the industry for 20 years because just things change so much. And so I very quickly became a subject matter expert in a lot of things. And like the industry is so vast that like even people who've been around for a long time were looking up to me and how to do things, which is super cool. And that has not changed. We still like things are still changing constantly, and we're still evolving. And you can still rapidly like jump into this river and just keep up with whatever everybody else is doing. Um, AI like changes the game a little bit, but I don't think that it's such a fundamental shift that like my advice is going to be totally different. My advice has always really just been work hard and learn the things that you need to on the job. And when you need to level up, you go down on the stack. Like, okay, now let's understand how this all works, rather than just like make it work and then ship it and not really understand what's going on. Which is also fine as you're getting into things. But yeah, anyway, I think AI definitely changes a lot of things, makes us more productive. But there is a lot of intuition that you develop as you gain more experience, and I think that people should be working on getting that.
Yeah, I feel like the more difficult part right now is figuring out the balance between learning with AI tools on or like you said, getting that intuition of like getting a good base, right? Like when do you switch over between from like I guess raw dogging JavaScript without AI or with like minimal AI to turning on cursor on agent mode?
Hmm.
I feel like that's a really difficult path right now for junior devs or new devs. And yeah, I'm wondering like educational content. You make a lot of educational content. You make a lot of tutorials, guides, workshops. Do you ever add any sort of AI into that right now, or is it still purely traditional, just educational content, no AI?
Yeah, the good question. So on the subject of AI education, I do have a course or a tutorial that's a free thing that people can go and see how I use AI. And of course, like that instantly becomes dated because of the pace of AI and everything. But the principles are all still there and still good. Otherwise, I'd take it down. But yeah, the interesting thing is I know some educators who tell their students, okay, you got to turn off your AI assistant for this so you can really understand this stuff. I think that's a mistake. I think that if I were brand new developer just getting into things, I would be using the heck out of AI, like constantly using that. Because here's the thing, like people say, oh, but it can make mistakes, it can hallucinate and stuff. Yeah, it absolutely can do that, just like you can. And the better you can get at identifying when it's doing that and guiding it back in the right direction, the more productive you're going to be. So I think like it's kind of like uh, using Notepad++ versus Notepad. Like who would when I first got into like writing some HTML documents way back in the day, I wouldn't consider myself really a programmer until I got into college, but when I was a teenager, I played around with HTML and stuff. And when I discovered Notepad++ with having syntax highlighting, like it just changed the game for me. It was so much better. And so I can't imagine not using syntax highlighting. And I feel like even as a beginner, like you can imagine maybe people back then saying, "Oh yeah, beginners shouldn't use syntax highlighting." Like that's the most nonsense thing I can think of. And I feel the exact same about AI. Beginners shouldn't use AI. No, that's nonsense. AI is a tool that we've got now. And maybe you're working at a company that has like these really strict requirements. You can't use AI or whatever. I think that's kind of stupid on the part of the business. They should not be doing that. They should find a way to make AI work, even if it's self-hosted or something. Those models are getting better. Like I can appreciate the security implications, all that. Like that's fine. Just find a way to run something locally. I know that ByteDance actually has their own stuff that they're running on their own stuff. Like it makes a lot of sense to make people productive. So yeah, I absolutely 100% think that developers should use AI as they're learning, and I encourage students of my workshops to have their AI assistants running. All the videos that I recorded for Epic Web and Epic React, those are all, they've got the AI completions in there. And it does feel like super handholdy, especially with the way that I do my workshops where the instructions are inline in the code. So it's like the AI just knows exactly what to do. And it's literally just like one tab away. But like that is, guess what? You can write those instructions, right? Like so even in the real world, you are going to be able to do that same sort of thing. Like so maybe I guess you could say I wrote the prompt for you, but you're still having experience in like prompting the AI, getting the output, and evaluating that output for whether it's good or not. So anyway, that's a long way to answer your question. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody should be using AI.
Yeah, I really like that take. I like especially the approach of like let it, yeah, it's going to make mistakes just like anyone else. Stack Overflow gave you wrong answers all the time.
Mhm.
Let it make mistakes and then kind of not trial by fire, but like figure it out because it's going not your app's not going to work and then you're going to have to debug it.
Yeah.
I like that mindset. I think a lot of people that are trying to promote like, hey, turn off AI are worried about the mistakes and like how are junior developers ever going to know it's a mistake? They won't when it's first making it, but it's going to screw up and then it's going
Yeah.
to break and then you're going to figure it out. So yeah, that's a really good approach and the whole kind of comparison between Notepad and Notepad++ also resonates with the fact that like why would you not use the best tool for the job? Like why
Hmm.
would you limit yourself intentionally even when you're learning? Because the guy beside you might not or the gal like whatever like they might not and then they're going to be ahead of you. So like yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's still a little bit difficult sometimes like maybe to get that base knowledge with AI, but you can prompt AI to tell you to teach you it as well. So like there's
Yeah.
just so many ways you can use it.
Yeah, like I said, that you go down to level up. So when you're just shipping stuff, that's not the time to level up. Like you will naturally develop experience, but like if we're talking about like a video game or something, sometimes you're just like going through the campaign and you're naturally developing experience, and then other times you're like, oh man, I really got to level up to get to this boss because there are a lot I don't have the right materials, whatever. And so now you're going to go and you're going to iterate over here on like these specific tasks or whatever. It's the exact same thing. You just go ship. And then when you feel like, oh man, I've got, this boss is tough. I got to figure out how this stuff works. Okay, now you're going to go into the fundamentals. And both learning approaches is perfectly, well, it's the way it should be done.
100%. Awesome. Thanks for that. I think next You've mentioned a few times this phrase, and I've seen it both, I think, in posts and in blogs of yours. Break out of the junior mindset, right? Like, I think a lot of people almost negatively connotate the junior keyword, right? Like, people are like, "Don't call yourself a junior developer." I'm wondering if you can kind of go into that a little bit more for people out there.
Sure. When you're first getting started in the industry, like we're going to call you a junior developer, you can call yourself a junior developer. I don't think that's a problem. But the like what you should be working toward is that next step wherever it is. And so here's kind of an example that might resonate with some people. I was a missionary for my church, and one of the things that we required people to do before they could join the church and be baptized and everything was structure their lives living the sorts of commitments that they're going to be making before they make those commitments. So, like, you're not going to be drinking, you're not going to be smoking, you're going to, like all of these different things that are promises that you're going to be making to God as soon as you are baptized. And we don't want the first thing you do after you make that commitment to be to break it, right? And so, in the same way, whatever position you're at, whether you're a junior or a senior and you're trying to get to the next level, you just want to live in the way of the next level. And so, like, yeah, you can call yourself a junior, but stop being a junior. Start being a senior or a mid level or whatever they call it at your company. Start acting in that way. And what that means is you look at what the seniors are doing at your company and you say, oh, they're taking on tasks that are like bigger than the things that I'm doing. So I'm going to ask, and like, unless you work at a really terrible company, you can say, I want to stop being a junior. And so I'm going to ask for some bigger tasks, and I would like it if you could trust me with those things, and I'll put in the work to make it happen. And people will support you in that. Like they would much rather have you be a senior than a junior, I promise. And so so take on the bigger tasks and put in the work to make it happen. Just look at what the seniors are doing at your company and do what they're doing. That's my basic suggestion.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What about for people that are trying to like get a job? I guess they don't have anyone to look to in that particular case about like leveling up. Or do you think in that particular case, you label yourself as a junior, you have an open mindset and try to get in and then you kind of do the level up process?
You mean like what kinds of jobs they're applying for, or?
Yeah, like I'm just thinking like from a perspective of, hey, I'm applying to a million junior jobs. I mean, right now, notoriously, the junior market is tough, right? Like
Mhm.
everyone is, it's difficult to break in. So a lot of advice that people get or some people get is maybe label yourself as not a junior, even though you are a
Mm.
junior. So what is that a possibility in that kind of mindset? Is that possible? How do you kind of, without a senior developer to look up to in that particular case, would you say that there is a path forward in that?
Yeah, I mean, if you've never had a software developer job, calling yourself anything other than a junior is going to be kind of tough. But the fact is, like, there's no law that says you have to label yourself as a junior on your resume. Like, you just say I'm a software developer or a software engineer or whatever you want to. Technically, from what I've seen, engineer gets higher pay than developer. So just take that for what it is. I call myself a software engineer. But I guess in some countries it's against the law to call yourself an engineer.
In Canada, it's against the law. Yeah.
Yeah,
I sometimes
that's a
catch myself
joke.
and I'm
I can
like,
call
oh,
myself whatever I want. Supreme Viceroy of Code or something, like whatever you want. But yeah, I think it's perfectly one of the pieces of advice most people getting or looking for work right now probably have heard this before, but like the job description is bogus most of the time. And so if you're seeing a bunch of stuff on there that, oh, you want 5 years of experience with React, well, I only have one. Apply anyway. It's garbage. They don't really care how many years of experience you've got, or maybe they think they do, but it doesn't matter. So yeah, I would apply anyway. Really, like if we're talking about looking for work, right now is crazy because not only is the market kind of down relative to 7 years ago, but also your resume is competing with 10,000 other resumes that were not generated by humans, but generated by AI. I talked to a friend recently who was hiring for a position, and he had a ton of resumes. He accepted one, and this guy came in, and well, like virtually. It was very clear he was using ChatGPT, and so he shut down the interview. Next day, he has another interview, and the same guy came in. Same guy, different resume, same guy, and he shut it down immediately, of course. And so, yeah, you're competing against that. Like people can make the perfect resume for the position with the touch of a button. And so that's what your resume is comparing against, your job application. So I cannot fathom applying for a job right now through the regular application process. That honestly sounds insane to me. If I needed to get a job, I would probably not even try to submit. I would not even try because it's just impossible. Because any honest person is not going to beat dishonest AI generated resumes. It's just not going to happen. And if I were hiring, I would also not be hiring in that way either, because it's just an incredible waste of time. AI has ruined the formal application process, which stinks. But here's what's interesting is the best way to get a job 7 years ago is still the best way to get a job. And that is with personal relationships that you develop at events or places where people are getting together, which is part of why I'm running my conference and other events that I have run. So like meetups, conferences, online communities, like maybe your company that you're interested in has open source projects, start contributing to those. Just like get your avatar in their face in a very positive way as often as possible. That's how you get a job 7 years ago. That's how you get a job today. And it takes a lot of work and it doesn't always work out. But it's definitely better than going through the front door.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think now more than ever, especially. Speaking of your conference, by the way, Epic Web Conference, can you give some advice to someone? Like, let's say someone listens to this podcast, decides to go on March 25th, and what is the kind of the key piece of advice from you to them about establishing themselves there and maybe making a connection?
Great question. So, um, I definitely see people who go to conferences and then they kind of fumble the experience by not engaging very well. This is not what you should do. Definitely take the opportunity to get to know people, meet people, all of that. That's very important. And I realize that that is kind of unfair to people who are like more introverted or whatever. But like just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not the reality. You need to take the opportunity to make the most of that and visit with people. So yeah, visit with people. Also, like I'm not really into LinkedIn, but I know that quite a few people are, and honestly, it is a relatively good way to connect with people professionally. But if there is a specific company that you're really interested in, or just a person that you really want to connect with, then just find out the best way to connect with them. Like some people still want to just get emails and stuff, which is totally cool. Or maybe they want to connect on Discord or just have you follow them on X. And like that works too. And then you could just start engaging with them in those spaces in appropriate ways. And like, yeah, so like find people to connect with them the way they want to connect and then engage with them in appropriate ways and your goal at the in-person event is so that they associate your actual being, your in real life persona with your online persona because that's how you're going to interact with them most of the time afterward. So like make sure that connection makes sense, which means like get rid of those cartoon avatars or whatever, like make your avatar your face. And then yeah, so like you make that connection in real life, make that connection online. Maybe you can even show them your avatar so that they recognize you and they remember you, and then engage with them in positive ways. So every time they see your avatar, they're like, "Oh yeah, I like this person." And then eventually, you share, "Hey, yeah, I'm looking for work. This is what I want to do." Maybe they have a place for you, maybe they don't. But like you're way better off having a relationship with them first than not.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Just making that initial connection, and then maybe down the line you can always slip in, "Hey, I'm looking for work," or something like that. Like
Yeah.
it's worked
Like
for me.
you do want to be authentic and genuine, and like you can say, "Hey, I'm looking for work," right up front and whatever as well. There's nothing wrong with that. Uh, and being respectful to them and their space and whatever. Like, um, this is where just being genuinely helpful and yeah, sharing interesting things can be like really important in this scenario. But like I think it's off-putting for people to have you just kind of sucking out of that relationship. But if you're putting into the relationship, then like I have plenty of people that I know who say, "Hey, I'm looking for work. I don't have a job for anybody. Like I'm solo, but I have a pretty good network. And so if I know somebody and I know that they do good work and stuff, then I'm gonna put a little bit of work in helping." At very least, like repost their post that they're looking for work. So,
How do you the last part of your sentence there? How do you know someone does good work? Like someone that you've initially met, is that through open source? Is that through just referrals from other people? Is that something like at a conference they come to you and they're like, "Look what I built. Like here's a laptop with my code on it," or something like that. Like how does that relationship begin to trust there?
yeah. So it's various forms. I've definitely had people come up to me during at conferences and say, "Hey, check out this thing that I built." Um, and like that's always pretty cool. Like there's only so much that I can do to validate that it's actually good work or whatever. But it, the people that I'm thinking about when I say that are mostly people I've known for a really long time in the industry, just like on Discord or on X. And I just see that they're sharing these things that they're building, like here's a really cool demo, or here's my portfolio, or whatever. And like, especially here's like if you want to get build a relationship with somebody in particular, use their stuff, the stuff that they are
Mhm.
building or promoting or whatever, and do something interesting with their stuff. Because then, like, I'm naturally more inclined to repost something that somebody says, like, here's my portfolio, and I used Kent C. Dodds MDX bundler to build it. Like, I'm gonna repost that because I want people to see, like, look, this is what you can do with my thing. Um, and so and it's very natural to mention me in that scenario too because I'm very interested in what people are building. That works really well if the person you want to connect with is like a builder of things that you can use. But it can also just be somebody who really is into a particular stack or something, and you say, "Hey, I learned this stack from you. I built this or whatever, or you told me about this and I built this and it's cool." Just like very natural scenarios where you can share your work with them. If they are involved in open source, getting involved in the open source that they are involved with, so that you're right there in the comments and you're giving like constructive and useful information. If you feel like you're just at the beginning of your career and you're not sure how you could build something with their stack or can like contribute constructively yet, that's okay. There are actually some really low-hanging fruit ways that you can contribute as well with documentation and stuff like that too. Um, or like I also do live streams regularly, and I've got a number of people who will watch the live stream. They'll see that I hit something that either like maybe it stumps me, or maybe I'm just like I'll get to that later, or something like I don't have time for that right now. And you're like, I think I could probably do that. And so I've got a couple people who will do that occasionally. I'll live stream something. I'll be like, I'm not going to work on this right now. I'll move on. And then I get a pull request for it later. And then like I'm thinking of one person in particular who's done that a couple times. And if that person ever came to me and said, "Hey, I am looking for work," guess what I'm doing? I'm posting about it because I know that they do good work. Because I have experience with them.
Anecdotally, I've actually hired someone that did that to me in a live stream, like fixed
Hmm.
something that I was working on. And it took a while. Like we built a relationship after that, like a decent back and forth. And then I eventually hired them and now they're on my team. So like absolutely 100% that works, anecdotally, but still, it's just that like just being out there and being able to share what you're building and try to help people. Holy crap, does that work
Yeah.
crazy good? But you might have to do it a lot and you might have to build a relationship. It's not like it'll work, you do it today and then you'll get a job tomorrow, but
Yeah.
for
Yeah, and
sure.
I'd say like I also get people who share their stuff with me and they're like, "Look, I built this with React." And like, yeah, I'm associated with React a little bit, like not officially or anything, but and I'll look at it and be like, hey, that's neat, but I don't really feel compelled to share it. So like there is something about really connecting with something that interests the person that you're trying to connect with, where like those types of shares are like, I'm not sure why you're sharing this with me. Like, I guess that's kind of interesting and cool, but I don't have any relationship with you. Like, I can celebrate with you, but I'm not going to repost that sort of thing. So like, there's something a little bit more there that it's hard for me to put into words what it is. But like, there's something that separates what feels really natural and genuine from what feels like just fishing for a repost.
Yeah. And the other thing is like even if it does connect with you and stuff like that, sometimes you might miss it. So I wouldn't take that as
Mm,
another thing
yeah.
to like yeah, to demotivate someone. You might have to reach out to a bunch of people. It's not you can't target one person. That would be stalking. But like you can't just go all in on one person and then just give up after that. You're gonna have
Mhm.
to spread out, try to build relationship with a bunch of people, be natural, like you said. So yeah, very good advice.
And on
Really
top of that
appreciate that.
too, like you have to remember that the other people that are like in your current situation will not be in your current situation forever. And so like just because somebody's not a tech influencer or whatever doesn't mean that they aren't like professionally beneficial to get to know. And I don't want to like take all those relationships and just say, oh, all that matters is how much you can suck from them. But like even from a purely selfish perspective, it makes sense to develop relationships with everybody. And then from a non-selfish perspective, it's more fun that way too.
100%. Yeah, exactly. You don't put all your energy into one person, please.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so I think that kind of establishes a little bit of a path for people to try to at least get something going, the ball rolling for them. Now, for people getting into the industry right now, I think one of the biggest challenges in web development is probably like where to start, what framework to go with, and stuff like that. I think like React, Next.js is probably the case, but do you have any guides or any piece of advice for people when they're Googling what to learn and they get a cluster map of a million different ways to do a single project? Like there is literally, I'm pretty sure an infinite amount of ways to build a to-do app at this point. Like I don't think that
Mhm.
it's a deterministic amount. I'm pretty sure it's infinite. What's your kind of piece of advice for people with that?
Yeah, the advice of what to learn for me comes down to what your goals are, and for a lot of people, the goal is to be hireable, and so then you say, okay, well, what companies do you want to have hire you? Because the answer is going to be very different if you're like, well, I want to go work for Tesla on their self-driving car, or I want to work for SpaceX on their lunar lander interface, or like I want to work for a non-Elon Musk company. Like, whatever. Sorry, I just realized both of those were Elon. But yeah, so like just depends on largely on what kinds of companies you want to work for. And maybe for some people, it's like, I literally want to work for a company that will pay me money. Like maybe you really don't care all that much. And so if there's a specific company, then you're going to look at the tech that they use and you're going to go learn that tech. If you're not sure, or you're a little bit more open, then you're going to just look at what in the place where I live, what are the jobs that are available? And of course, we have remote positions all over, so like that has broadened a little bit, but you're probably pretty well situated to just focus on what is in your local area, and you could probably land a remote position with those same skills too. So look at your local area, see what are the job openings that there are, because they are still publishing applications for AI to submit to. But find out what is the tech that these companies are using, and then learn that tech. And I'll skip it to the end for you. It's React. If you want to do anything with web UI, even native UI, you're going to be doing React. If you do want to do native mobile apps, then maybe it'll be Swift and Kotlin. But if you're listening to this podcast, you probably care about the web, and it's going to be React. It is still used by more than everything else combined. So, like as popular as these other ones are, and you're going to look on X and find out that wow, it looks like Vue and Solid and Astro. Well, Astro is everything. Svelte, like they're all looking pretty hot and popular. And yeah, they are. This is not like they're insignificant, but you put them all together and it's still less than React. So if you're purely just like, I just want to get a job working in the web, then I recommend React.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big Svelte person, but I still recommend React because of exactly what you said. And I don't think it's ever going to change, or I shouldn't say ever. I don't think it's going to change anytime soon as well because of AI and the fact that AI now has so much information about React and Next.js that the other ones just can't like realistically keep up with that stuff. So
Hmm.
whenever someone asks it to build it an app, guess what language it's going to build it in?
Yep.
Without being prompted. And whenever you have an issue with your application with React, it's going to know how to fix it a lot better than Svelte. I can say that from personal experience. So it's tough to recommend any other framework right now, which is kind of sad on one part. The other part is like, I don't really know how to combat that. So,
Yeah,
and
I've been saying for the last, almost a decade that React is the last framework you need to learn. Now, like that's not to say that learning Vue or Svelte or Solid or anything Angular is not worthwhile. Like, of course, if you enjoy that, it agrees with your sensibilities, like sure. But if you learn React, you won't ever have to learn anything else. And the reason is that nothing will be able to unseat it. And for the same reason that you just mentioned, AI is going to just use React by default. And eventually, AI is just going to be doing everything that we do, and we're just going to be prompt engineers or whatever. Like there will be something like that. I don't know how long it'll take to get there, but eventually it will get there. And nothing else could possibly unseat React before that happens. And so that's why I say that it's the last framework you need to learn because by nothing can unseat it before that happens. So go ahead and like if you want to learn other things, go for it. Like they're cool, they're interesting. But if you want to just optimize your chances for work, React is the one.
yeah, would you say there's any value from a resume perspective or anything perspective in the sense of like being able to show that you can learn other frameworks? You know what I mean? Like, hey, I built this
Yeah.
in React and I built this in Vue, and that gives you a little bit more like over top of someone that's only doing React. I don't know.
Yeah. It really depends on who the interviewer is. Unfortunately, like we're really, really bad at interviewing in this industry. I'm not sure what it's like in other industries, but I know for sure in this one it's pretty bad. It's just really hard to evaluate somebody's capabilities in like a 4 hour interview or however long. And yeah, so what like there are better ways to interview, but as the person looking for the job, you don't get to choose that. So the whether or not like it's beneficial to say, oh yeah, I also know Vue, kind of depends on if your interviewer wishes that they could be doing Vue. I for myself, I have laser focused on JavaScript and React for the last decade. And it has worked out really well for me. I've got a different path from most people. I don't work for anybody. I'm a full-time educator and stuff. I worked at PayPal, and that's when I got into React. And before that, I was in Angular at other companies. But yeah, when I was at PayPal hiring, I didn't really care about whether I didn't care so much about whether they even knew React. I would just ask them, what are you really good at? And they would say React. And I would say, okay, build me a counter component. And then they couldn't do that. And I was like, well, if this is the thing you're good at, I don't want to see the thing you're bad at. We're not going to recommend this person. I could not tell you how many people came and said, I'm really good at React, and they couldn't build a counter component. Like literally make me a button that renders a 0. And every time I click on it, that number increments. That is the entire interview. And people would take an hour to do that. So like,
Rough.
I guess here's another piece of advice, like actually know how to code. And now, if I were interviewing, I would absolutely let them have the AI assistant on. Like, assuming PayPal allows their employees to have AI, which I expect they do. But I would say, yeah, this is the tool that we use on the job. Show me how you use this tool. Anyway, yeah.
Would you ask more complicated questions now because of that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, so like there were definitely people who could make the button. And so then I'd say, all right, so now let's add this feature and now let's do this thing. And what about this case? How do you solve that? Um, and it was just like we'd see how far we could get. So now I would expect we could get really far, and I would just see how they handle those different scenarios. I actually think it'd be kind of fun to figure out how to interview with this with the tools we have now because it's a lot better than it used to be. Like I used to let them Google stuff, and some
Mhm.
people would Google. All right, actually
Counter
nobody
up.
ever did this, but they should have just Googled counter component in React, and then like that's fine. Like this is how we do the job. I don't think anybody ever did that, which is kind
Wasn't
of
that
funny,
in the
but
React docs as like the first example or something like that? I'm
yeah,
trying to.
probably.
I think it was like, oh God, that would be
Yeah,
a
but
rough one.
like in an interview situation, you also have to like recognize people are freaking out and they're trying to show their best and I always tried my very best to like help them understand I'm just trying to help you show me the best you can do. And yeah, but like it's a nerve-wracking experience. But I honestly I don't know like how nerve-wracking can it be that you can't make a counter button if you've done React before? Like I there's no amount of nerve-wrackingness that I can imagine that would preclude you from being able to do that if you actually could. So,
Yeah, that would be essentially just not being able to speak because of your nerves. I guess like that would be the
yeah,
same. Yeah, like
yeah.
that would be the same thing.
I guess that can happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that translates to their ability to work on the job. Like that, feel like there would be some sort of translation there. But um,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, it's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think one technique that I've used recently because of AI for interviewing is I've gotten them to bring a code base that they're familiar with or they know or they built themselves, and then I go through and like question them on the code
Mm,
that they've written themselves, and then that proves that they at least understand code from a fundamental perspective. It's usually less intense than writing code from scratch,
mm.
and it gets around the whole like if AI built that for you completely in one shot, then and you don't know it, then it's an easy, it's easy to suss that out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, and even if what's interesting is you could also just generate an app yourself,
mm,
and then say, "Hey, could you explain this code base to me?" Because that's what they're going to be doing on the job is have AI generate some stuff, and they're going to need to know how it all works. So,
absolutely, yeah. I think honestly, the only other thing I want to ask you is a little bit about like a React roadmap then. Like you've been in
mm.
React for a long time. You just said 10 years and you have courses on it. You have the React Router course coming up. What's your advice to for people learning React? Like what's the first thing they should do? And yeah.
Well, if you want to learn React, I have a free workshop on Epic React. It's called Get Started with React, and it gets you up and going on like what is how do you create React elements? How do you create custom components? And then that it evolves into Epic React, the full series of workshops that tens of thousands of people have gone through and learned React really well. So if you want to get really good at React, I know of no other alternative that's any better. It's fabulous. And so that would be like, as far as a course, that would be a good thing. There's no substitute for actually building stuff. Even if you use like bolt.new or v0 to generate the initial thing, now you've got a whole bunch of code that you can go and review and try and understand and break. And you can even ask AI, how is this working? How to like explain this to me? You've got just an amazing companion to help you understand stuff now. It's super fascinating. And yeah, like you're on the right track learning React. There are a lot of other people who are also trying to learn React. You should get to know who they are, and develop those relationships, and rub shoulders with people who already know React, who are professionals in the industry. So like go to the meetups they're going to or the conferences and whatever. I think all of that will contribute to your success in the industry. So good luck.
Awesome. I think those are really good pieces of advice. I've actually taken a look at the free React course that you have, the workshop, I should say, and it was fantastic. When I looked at it, it was a little while ago now too, so it's solid
Oh,
and
I
held
just
up.
updated it
Oh,
a
sick.
couple months ago, and the whole experience is revamped. It's very, very much better now. So yeah, people should give that a look.
For sure. We'll have a link in the show notes to that. But thank you so much, Kent, for your time. I kind of want to give you some time to plug anything that you haven't already plugged. Tell the listeners where to find you, what to click on, what to do.
Yeah, sure. So kentcdodds.com is my home base. I also created testingjavascript.com if you want to learn the fundamentals of testing. And Epic React was the next thing that I built. And I, like I said, just released a new version of that is phenomenal, all updated with React 19 and everything. And then epicweb.dev, it is a place where I've actually got other instructors putting stuff up on there, and I've got my full stack workshop series on there, so you can build the entire application yourself. And we go really, really deep into lots of things like user authentication and data modeling, and then all the way on the front end with accessible UIs and stuff like that too. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, give those things a look. I'm on X at Kent C. Dodds, GitHub at Kent C. Dodds, on YouTube, Kent C. Dodds Vids. And yeah, see you around on the internet.
Awesome. Thank you so much for
Oh, I
coming.
should mention also, I do have a podcast as well. It's the Call Kent podcast, where you can actually record in your browser a question, and then I will record my response, and then our conversation turns into an episode on the podcast.
Oh, that's cool as heck. Okay. Is there a website for that?
Yeah, kentcdodds.com/calls. Eventually, I'm going to productize that. I built it myself. It's all custom, but I think like it'd be pretty cool if you could do that same sort of thing with other people in the industry. So
Good idea.
one day.
Yeah, I like it. Definitely going to check that out. And again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Mike. See you, everybody.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that interview as much as we did, but it is now time to end. And before we do so, remember that you can support episodes like this. That's via Patreon on patreon.com/HTML all the things. And many thanks to our $3 tier patrons. Tim from the Web Hacker on thewebhacker.com. Jason from Geek Life Radio via geekliferadio.com. Garrett Segal, Level Up Financial Planning via www.levelupfinancialplanning.com. Magnus from YesWeb via yesweb.se. Syntaxify from the HTML All the Things Discord server, and Stacy Mosteler from the website swoonworthydesigns.com. And we'd like to give a shout out to Michael LaRocca, contributing author on HTMLAllTheThings.com. Michael is the author of Self-Taught the X Generation blog at selftaughttxg.com. Feel free to leave a comment or review in the platform that you are listening to this on, and this outro will sign us off.
You've been listening to HTML All the Things podcast. Web development, web design, and small business. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we hope you appreciate that we talk to you like human beings. And we hope you had some fun. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon at HTML All the Things. And on Twitter at HTML Everything. Until next time, this is HTML All the Things, signing off.